So, a very good evening to everyone present here. I am Riddhi Chandal, CEO at LawInternships, the online law school. So, before beginning the webinar, I would like to give a brief introduction about our organization. So, LawInternships is an online law school which shall extensively provide educational services. We provide opportunities in the field of law to the students who are pursuing undergraduate or postgraduate programs such as internships, certificate courses, training programs such as internship cum training program, publication services, law school kit, and we do organize events at national level such as mediation competition, moot court competitions, and so many for gaining professional experience as well as improving legal skills while a student is being enrolled in a full-time law program. The objective behind this online law school is to provide a credible platform for the law students to fulfill educational requirements by imparting practical exposure and relevant skills. The uniqueness of this school is to unlash a law school whereby students get an opportunity to hone their skills outside a classroom and provide wide ranging services to the students for their holistic development. So far, in the past 2 years, 1.5 lakh members, including law students, law firms, law universities, have joined us from Pan India through our services and social media handles. So today we have amongst us Mr. Ankit Dhotrekar, who is a mentor for Clat, LSAT, and judicial services in India. He is a former assistant professor and assistant dean at Jindal Global Law School and a former assistant professor at Bennett University. He holds LLB from the University of Delhi and LLM in Access to Justice from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Along with teaching law subjects, he relishes studying and teaching legal and logical reasoning. So, with the background in pure sciences and computer science, he attempts to use technology generously. So, when not teaching, researching, or making video lessons, he likes to play cricket, listen to music, and to cook. We welcome you, Mr. Ankit.
Thank you so much, Riddhi.
Today, he will deliver a lecture on how to prepare for Clat UG and PG both and how you should strategize your preparation for both the exams. So if anyone has any questions and queries, you can raise your hand and we will recognize you, or you can type in chat box and we will discuss these in animation. So without delaying any further, let's begin the session for today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Riddhi. A very good evening to all of those present here. I appreciate that you showed up today. So I understand that in this session, we are joined by students of both the UG and the PG. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I won't get into the nitty-gritties of preparation because that, of course, is something that's a lot more extensive. I'll stick to giving you something that is like a strategy. And strategizing is kind of common for both people who are attempting UG and PG, with minor differences. And I'll not take too much time because I'll just put across what I believe is some wisdom of mine regarding preparation for the entrances. And thereafter, maybe I'd take some questions and that'd be about it. So there's no dearth of material, as you might see. It's time that is kind of essence, and it's about being able to use time wisely. If we look at where we are as of now, we are in October. There's November after this, and there's some amount of December. And then we'd have the exam on the 18th of December. That is totally close to less than 60 days now, because if it's 18th of December, now we are left with less than 2 months. And how we might want to use this time is a question that I'd kind of want to speak with you over the course of the next 15-20 minutes or so that I'd be speaking. There's this thing about peaking at the right time, which I believe is one of the most ignored aspects of examination strategy. You know, if someone were to tell me that, look, Ankit, if you do 100 push-ups and 100 pull-ups every day for the next 30 days, you'll get a really good solid body, you'll get really ripped. I agree. If I were able to do 100 push-ups and 100 pull-ups every day for 30 days, indeed, I'd find myself really transformed at the other end of it. So right now we have 60 days. If you would really work hard for the next 59 days, you will find yourself very different. Now, this is selling you a story that's just a partial truth. Because if I tell you the truth of my starting to do 100 push-ups and pull-ups every day, suppose I do 100 push-ups today, tomorrow I'd find that I'm too sore to even get out of bed, right? So you know that you should know that there's a certain period before the exam, right? Let's think of it like this. I'm showing you a tentative timeline in here. Let's talk about the last 15 days before the exam, regardless of what that examination might be. In my estimation, Clat is competitive, but not one of the most competitive exams in the country. Clat PG is even less competitive than that. So, for example, for the Clat, you might have around 60,000 undergraduate applicants, and you have slightly less than 10,000 students for the PG. That's generally what the numbers are like. If I were to compare that with some of the more competitive examinations in the country, that perhaps would be the UPSC, where you have 1 in 10,000 selections. You have the IIT JEE. Could you just keep your mics off, please? Whoever is kept it on, please mute yourselves. And you have, am I clearly audible to everyone here? Am I clearly audible?
Yes, you're completely audible.
All right. Thank you. So when you look at the last 15 days, so I was saying that there are examinations that are very competitive. Now, when you have a very competitive exam, something where the selection ratio is like 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, you've got to really peak for a long period. You've got to sustain an energy to peak for around 3 to 4 months before the exam, right? You've got to be at the top of your game for 3 to 4 months. That means you're doing 100 push-ups and 100 pull-ups and 10 kilometers of jogging every day for those 30 days, so that on the day of the examination, you're your best. An examination like the Clat UG is a game of being somewhere around 1 in 100. The Clat PG, slightly easier, not because of the number, but because of the fact that, you have other possibilities and stuff. Also, you have non-NLU options, which at this point you might feel are absolutely worthless for you, but it's not so. You will find that taking an exam seriously will open doors that you might want to see. So I'd recommend, and this video is not for people who are extremely well versed with their preparation already. So I am not addressing at this point the people who already find themselves in the top 1%, 2%, or even top 20%. I'd assume that if you're attending a session by a random fellow 2 months before an exam, that you are not prepared, you've not begun preparing yet. You're just eating popcorn and you wanted to watch something happening. So this is that show. This is a show where you're having popcorn and somebody is saying ki bhai Clat ke liye kya karna chahiye. So I'm him. So if you are extremely good already, you should better go ahead with your own preparation, because you know better than I do. I'm acquainting you with this. So given that this is where we are, and that it takes no brilliance to clear an exam, like something that 600 or 1,000 people clear every year is obviously not brilliant. It just requires a couple of things to be in place. And I'm just sharing with you with a little bit of experience as to what I believe. The last 15 days, you need to peak, which means you need to be doing 100 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, and 10 kilometers of jogging every single day. For that, you should understand that you are not in a position to do that right now. For example, I am not in a position to do that right now. Therefore, we are attempting to see what we can do to be able to peak in those last 15 days. That will require you to prepare yourself in more things than simply the curriculum. You have to build your skills. You have to ensure that your last 15 days are free in ways that allow you to do this. So let me just talk about the first phase as the first 10 days or so that are left in October. Then you have the phase in between, that is the month of November. So when we're talking about this, then we're talking about the month of November, and then you have December. If you do not peak in December, if you're not studying really hard in the month of December, it's highly unlikely that you will clear a competitive exam. Let me talk about some points of strategy again that are common to both the UG and the PG. Sometimes people consider leaving out a section. So for example, you're preparing for either the UG or the PG. and you believe that maybe quantitative techniques is not your thing. Let me just leave out the quant. Or maybe you're studying for the PG and you think that, hey, this international law is not my thing. Let me dump it. Oh, I don't like to see what arbitration is. I don't like company law. Let me dump it. So you decide that, hey, let's leave out a section and master the other sections. A question that I'd really like to ask you is, do you ever think you can master a section completely? See, regardless of what the subject is, there are two types of questions that can happen in every subject. You can have either easy questions or difficult questions. The difficult questions of any topic are always going to be difficult, right? So even if you've prepared a lot, it is likely that you will not be able to solve a difficult question. So what we want to ensure is that we leave out no easy question of any topic. Therefore, my recommendation is, do not leave out any section completely. Do not leave any section out. You still have enough time. We're not talking 15 days before the exam. We still have a certain amount of time. It's always possible for you to build yourself in every section to an extent that you can at least answer the easy question of every section. This is kind of like there's the law of diminishing marginal utility in economics, which kind of means that, see, getting the first 30-40% in an exam, even if you've seen in school, to get 40% to just pass, you need to study one day before the exam. To get 80%, you need to study 2 days before the exam or so. But the topper who gets 95 has to study every single day. So you see, going from 0 to 60, if it takes X days, 60 to 80 takes X days, 80 to 90 takes another X days, 80 to 85 takes X days. So, you have to work harder to get more. So don't miss out on the easy questions of anything. Attempt all sections. First point. I'm talking now about the undergraduate program. I'll talk a bit about PG as well, but we can perhaps do that through the questions. You see, when I talk about this periodization, that you get to a point where you are peaking. So how could you strategize that? In the first phase, I'd recommend for you to form habits, to develop your concepts. So let us say you don't like to read, you don't like to sit, you don't like to study, you don't know maths at all, numbers scare you. These are things that you cannot do later on. If you do not do this now, you will not do this later. Okay. The next thing that I want you to understand is that over the next phase, you want to develop skills. So you don't necessarily fear it. You don't necessarily loathe it. It's not something that you don't know at all. But you want to cultivate your skills. And these skills apply for both, whether it is, so if you talk about, say, preparation for the Clat PG, being able to memorize judgments, that's something that's very important for you. So you don't fear the judgment, but you've not trained your mind to look at judgments and memorize them, to understand as to what that is, to look at several related judgments. You need to develop this skill. And then I'd say that you should leave the purely fact-based things for later, which means that let us say you are presently a student that is preparing for Clat UG. At this point, if you think in the month of October that you don't know maths at all, and you're thinking कि भाई quant छोड़ दें क्या data interpretation, क्या graph देखना, ऐसा मत करो. In the month of October, quant को देखो. Reading comprehension, you ask a person, do you know reading comprehension? Everybody says yes. There's nobody who says he doesn't know reading comprehension. But when you go and solve the question, the answers are wrong, which means that there's something that's required there, which means that you need to hone the skill. That is something that you can do a little later. Now, the thing with current affairs is that you'll find that it's simply a fact. It's a bare fact. The nature of a fact is वो दिमाग में आता भी आसानी से है और निकल भी जल्दी जाता है. तो मान लो कोई भी करंट अफेयर्स है, आप उस फैक्ट को आज याद करोगे, फटाक से याद हो जाएगा, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट डिफिकल्ट, उसमें कोई कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है, और क्योंकि उसमें ऐसा कुछ नहीं था, वो फटाक से निकल भी जाएगा. So I'd say that you can leave your current affairs and all things that you consider factual. Now this applies to both UG and PG. The factual aspects of your preparation, leave that for the end. The other advantage of leaving current affairs for the end is, now we are close to the exam, but let's say you talk of any incident, okay? Let us say you know that there was one thing of legal significance. Let's say it's talking about the hijab row, for example. Now you see something first happens in the Karnataka, then you have the Karnataka High Court, then you have the Supreme Court thing, then you know something is happening in Iran. Now all of these things happen months apart. So if somebody was studying current affairs every day, usko ek naya panna, he gets a new episode of that separated by 2-3 months. Whereas if you were to study this at the end, you will just look at one note or one booklet. It will say, in this month this happened, in this month this happened, this month this happened. 4 points. You have understood as to what has to be done regarding that particular topic. So leaving current affairs for the end is a good idea. First, because जब दिमाग से उतरना ही है उसको जल्दी से, जब फैक्ट्स भूलने ही है, क्यों ना एक बार पढ़ के एग्जाम हो जाए और फिर वो निकल जाए, instead of having to read it 4-5 times and then forgetting it. That's the first reason. The second reason is that current affairs repeat themselves month after month. And it's better for you to have got everything done. And also what happens by the end is that you will find that there are many people, coaching institutes and others, who will post somewhere around December a video that they will call a master class or a marathon, where you will find 6 to 8 hours of current affairs. I will be doing that myself too. You'll have plenty of others who are doing that. You will get one video जहां पर किसी ने 6-8 घंटे के लिए पूरा करंट अफेयर्स आपको करवा रखा होगा. आप उसको देखो. योर करंट अफेयर्स विल बी डन वेरी इजीली. Let me say you talk about what you want to do in October, starting off. Many times we don't know what we don't know. That is one of the biggest troubles with preparation. For example, you know, the questions in the Clat, especially in the UG, never look difficult. It's like a person looks at a photograph and says that the mother of the brother of this person is my nephew. Now, this is not difficult, you know, it all looks doable. But then when you actually venture to do this question, you find that you get it wrong. You need to understand what you don't know. And many times when we are starting off, we think we know reading comprehension. We think that we know basic logical reasoning. We think that we don't know maths. And we have to get this in place. Do you know what the examination is like, what it looks like? So the CLAT, both for the UG and the PG, has undergone a drastic change since 2020, right? You need to see the papers of 2020, 21, and 22. That's it. This will let you know as to what the examination pattern is, so that you know what you're looking for when you read text. When you face a problem, again, it might look to you like I'm just giving you generic things, and that's exactly what strategy is about. I'm not here to give you the specifics. Specifics you will see later on. There's ample material for that. Everybody overcomes a problem in a different way. So the problem for a person is very peculiar to the person themselves. So sometimes my problem with sitting might be just being able to sit on the chair. For you, it might be your family. For someone else, it's something else. You start off by seeing as to how you will remove the obstacles to your preparation first. So these are obstacles. Do you know what you don't know? Do you know, at least know what the exam is like? Do you know what stops you from being able to prepare for the exam in your daily life? So you begin with the previous year paper of these 3 years. And if you've enrolled for the CLAT already, you also have a sample paper that no one can share with you because it's bound by copyright. You're not allowed to do that. But once you enroll, you will get that. Look at the non-current affairs part in this, Baba, because you know that 2020, 21, 22, that part is not the same. And therefore, you try solving the questions by yourself. So you will find them solved, but that doesn't mean that you go and look at the solutions. You see, you have a book, 5,000 questions on CLAT, question after question, and you have the solutions. That doesn't give you what you need. You need to give yourself an assessment of where you stand. Take these questions, struggle with them a bit, because you're starting off in October. Like I said, you need to do the 100 push-ups per day in December. Right now, go and, acha, oh, my wrist is weak. So I can't do push-ups. Oh, I have a pain in here. Oh, I can't do pull-ups. Oh, the rod at my house is kind of broken. I need to cement that. This is what you do in the initial part. Identify what you don't know. Once you've identified what you don't know, that perhaps gives you the first piece of wisdom, because you don't want to be listening to somebody 20 days later कि what to do in the last 40 days. अच्छा तो ये क्योंकि शर्म की बात तो ये भी है कि आप 60 दिन पहले किसी रैंडम लड़के को सुन रहे हो कि भाई 60 days में क्या करें. You're wasting your time in a certain way and you don't want to keep doing that. So the moment until you read something, you know nothing, you will listen to any Tom, Dick and Harry. If you read a little, आप कहोगे, अगर मान लो if there was someone who had studied right now and if it come to this video, he'll say, अरे, I don't want to listen to this garbage. I have to go and study. The fact that you're not doing that suggests that you have something to start off with. So get to a stage over the next 10, 12 days in October that you don't have to listen to somebody saying what to do in the last 50 days. During this time, in case you feel that you don't like to study, and evidently, if you're here for a webinar, since you are here, it means that you enjoy the prospect of someone coming, talking, कुछ चल रहा है, कोई कुछ बोल रहा है. It means you like a video. Videos are also passive ways of learning. Sometimes there are certain learners who like the activity that's happening in a video. A video is a kind of holistic kind of thing in the sense that it arouses all of your senses, but then it's very slow. So you can flip through a book, but you can never flip through a video. At best, you can make it 2x, but you can't flip through a book. So agar video dekhne ho, to baba, you should not watch videos in the month of November. You should not watch videos in December. That's very foolish because your examination is not in video format. Your examination is written. So you eventually want to move from videos to text. But starting off right now, don't open a textbook अगर तुम्हारी टेक्स्ट से दोस्ती ना हो तो. वीडियो देख रहे हो, वीडियो पसंद करते हो इसलिए यहाँ पर हो. अभी जितने लंबे लंबे वीडियोस हैं, पॉपकॉर्न लो और नेटफ्लिक्स की तरह बिंज वॉच पीपल टॉकिंग. जितना समझ में आ रहा है उतना देखो. कुछ लिखने का मन कर रहा है तो लिखो, नहीं लिखना मत लिखो. सो यू आर स्टार्टिंग ऑफ. नेक्स्ट वी गोइंग टू नवंबर. हियर spend time on what you are not good with. So people say work on your strengths. You may want to do that in the month of December. As of now, you still have time because it's not a lot of volume as such in terms of knowledge, especially the UG. Well, Clat PG is a knowledge game, and at this point, I might not be speaking to the PG applicants. Spend time with what you find difficult. If you're a PG applicant, there are certain aspects in the learning that you find difficult. Try to confront that. When we're not good at something and we give 10 days to that, it's very hard to give 10 days to something that you're not good with because everything fights you, your insides fight you completely. But if you were to do that, you'd see that there's a difference. So spend time on what you're not good with. Don't leave it, don't dodge it. You have the time in November to do that. अगर अभी नहीं किया तो बाद में तो नहीं करोगे. Build your stamina. Try doing what you find difficult in the process. So you are solving more previous year questions apart from the 2022, 23, 21. So apart from 20, 21, 22, you can also start looking at the previous year questions before that. While they don't teach you the examination pattern, they are very important because you should understand that there's a very limited pool of questions for examiners. So let us say, so for example, there are some entrance tests that I am also involved with in contributing questions, etc. So when someone tells me कि आप क्वेश्चन पेपर बनाइए, तो मैं खुद क्वेश्चन नहीं बनाता हूँ. I look at questions from elsewhere. You see, the questions of previous year exams are in the public domain, यानी उस पे copyright नहीं है. So it's very convenient for people to pick up those questions and put them again. Yani, if you start looking at the previous year's questions of Clat, ALET, other exams that are there for law, you will find that pool of questions will be repeated. So after looking at 20, 21, 22, if you were to look at any more questions in the month of November, look at the previous year's questions. It will really help you. Enroll for a test series. Now, when you take a test series, you might have two types of test series. One says that for 1,000 rupees, I'm giving you 50 tests. There's another that's saying for 20,000 rupees, I'm giving you 2,000 tests. That's not what you want to do. You don't have that kind of time to just take tests and get on the other side of it and see, oh, ye galat jawab, oh, sahi jawab. It's not time for you to play KBC here. You want to take a test series to be able to cultivate your ability to sit and take a long test. In the month of November, I'd recommend take not more than 2 tests in a week. Some people would say take a test every day, but taking a test every day is like saying do push-ups every day for 30 days. Might be good, but may not be the best advice for you. My suggestion is when you take a test, be aware of what you want to improve, which is why the stage of October was important. You know what you don't know. So when you sit through a process of 3 hours, maybe you might say, oh, after 1.5 hours, I start getting a little drowsy. Oh, I want to do this section first and that section later. So now when you look at the Clat UG, 3 sections are predominantly comprehension based. The logical reasoning section, the reading comprehension section, and the legal reasoning section. You have to read, and jo likha hai, uske basis par you have to answer the questions. So it's basically you reading that thing intently. The current affairs part is kind of knowledge. So you don't have to read very intently, you have to recollect. Again, with quantitative techniques, it's not so much about reading long lines. So, you'd realize that some people like to, they say that I put my mindset in such a way that I like to read, then I want to go to maths. Somebody is like, hey, I want to do some amount of reading. So I'm reading comprehension. Then my mind gets tired of this reading. So I want to do maths. And then you go back to the next reading kind of section. So you will, so take a test, not for the sake of looking at more questions. That's quite stupid. Take a test for the sake of seeing your behavior in tests. It's more important to dwell on how you've behaved in the test, to ruminate over what you've done, to learn from it, rather than to just take test after test. If you take test after test, you're just being quite a donkey, so to speak. Pardon my language. You're being quite a donkey when you decide to just take test after test for the sake of doing that. You're not doing this for anybody, you're doing it for yourself. Take a test and spend enough time to see what you're up to. So take a good test series. Don't go for too many tests. Take good tests. I'd say that from now until the end of your preparation, if you've done around 10 tests, I think that's more than enough. From the month of November, start reducing. If you're watching videos as of now, reduce the amount of videos that you've been watching. Rely on text, take down notes. Because when you've held notes, or when it's in a book, you can flip through it like this. Like you can actually literally just one glance. So for example, right now on this, let's say this is a video. I took the last 10 minutes to show you these 4 points, these 5 points on my screen. If this were a screenshot, you'd see this in just 2 seconds and you can flip it ahead. So you don't want to be relying on videos at the end. You want to rely on text. You want to rely on notes. Talking about December. Again, by December, you should know what you should be doing. In case you're listening to someone in December, ki December mein ye karo, that means you've not gained the wisdom that you need, right? And there's only a certain extent to which anyone can talk to you about what to do, because these are all very personal journeys ultimately. Spend some time, get conditioned, get wise before that. And you see, there's this thing. When I look back at times when I've been a slightly sincere student, after which I was not one. So in my initial days when I was a kind of sincere student, am I audible to everyone? Am I audible here?
Yes, you're completely audible.
Yeah. So when I look back at my school or some university or some exams, when I was kind of sincere, what would happen is I would have kind of studied a little bit every day. I kind of know the exam. I know the teacher knows me. ऐसा लगता था कि नहीं यार अंकित, I should not fail in this exam. Oh, Ankit, everyone thinks you are going to do well and you're going to do badly. So somehow the fact that I had invested myself in the subject, in the learning, in everything, gives me the impetus to study the entire night. So if I have studied 70% of the course, then one night before, I used to have the motivation to kind of push myself and do the remaining 30%. But later on, as I kind of became an older student and I started doing only 10%. So one night before the exam, so what I have done is that at times when I've been interested, I have been able to do the remaining 40% in one night. But what happens when you've studied only 10% is, आपको लगता है अरे यार अभी तक नहीं पढ़ा तो अब क्या पढ़ लेंगे, चलो नहीं मिला तो कुछ और कर लेंगे, भगवान की यही मर्जी होगी. And then in the last month before the exam, the point where you are supposed to peak, you will find yourself that you're actually declining. Now, this is where you are 100% sure that you will not clear the exam. Any person who has not peaked before the exam will not clear the exam. It's not the same as saying that if you peak, you will clear the exam. This is becoming a logical reasoning question. But anyway, if you do not peak before the exam, you will not clear the exam. So you need to ensure that come the 1st of December, you've laid such a firm foundation, you've invested yourself so deeply in the preparation that you are now in a position to go for the sprint. Okay. And a 15-day sprint, a 17-day sprint, let me tell you, that is, it gives you a good chance, regardless of whether you're preparing for the UG or the PG. I think that's all I had to say. And if anyone is in, I mean, you can ask me questions. If I can, I'll deal with it. Otherwise, that's why you need to rely on yourself.
That was a very quite insightful, I would say, Mr. Ankit. Dear participants, if you would like to have some questions, you can type out in the chat box or you can unmute yourself one by one. I think Shraddha has raised her hand before. Shraddha, do you have any query?
Shraddha isn't here.
Okay, I think she might.
Yeah. I think Rahul has a question. Okay, for PG. So Disha is asking me books recommendations for. You see, I think that for the Clat PG, once you're done with looking at the previous year pattern, you'd find that the current affairs, the league, the most recent judgments are your best source. Am I allowed to say, take the names of a couple of websites in here and stuff like that? And
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
so I'd really say you can go in for a premium subscription of Live Law. I think that's an amazing thing for you to do, regardless of whether you're preparing for UG or PG, but particularly for PG, you'll find that there are digests which give you the Supreme Court judgments across various topics in there. Perhaps now, if you start preparing for CLAT PG and you think, चलिए, अब concept सीखते हैं, पहले concept सीखेंगे, उसके बाद आगे जाएंगे. That's not a very good idea when you have only 60 days left. Because while I said you need to sprint at the end, we are still in the final lap. So I've just made a kind of final lap within the final lap, but you must understand that there's not much time left for the exam. What I'd say, and the second thing is that this kind of sequential learning, पहले किताब से concept देखेंगे, उसके बाद questions देखेंगे, फिर test करेंगे. You don't have the time for that. Linear learning doesn't really stimulate your mind to the same extent as random learning. Okay. So for example, when you go to Live Law, you'd find a judgment that's maybe on CRPC section 125. Suddenly from there, it goes to arbitration. It goes from there. Suddenly you'd find, and you should do this during the month of October, especially, and later on you make notes. You find yourself having to read numerous things across a various array of subjects. Once you have done doing that, you'd know a little of everything. Then what you could do is you can go and pick up one of those guides that give you bullet points for each subject. If you pick up the bullet point book first, it's very smooth, you know. It's like you look at the thing, it's arranged there. You're reading the sweet little book that says point number 1, this one started here, point number 2. It feels very sweet. Then there are many sweet questions. You look at the solutions. It's a very sweet process. Everything looks familiar, but you don't get the questions right. So as far as the books are concerned, I'd say go for Live Law because that's the most important thing for you as of now. You will need to be abreast with jurisprudence because Live Law is unlikely to give you the jurisprudence that you need. You need to be familiar with the Constitution. That's the other thing because it's considered that. So the static part that you need to know is the jurisprudence and the constitutional law. For the rest of it, the questions that you are likely to see are based on recent judgments. So make sure you go and see that. Once you're done with that, you can pick up a test series of a reputed coaching institute. Don't go for something that gives you too many tests. So there are times I've kind of interacted with a coaching institute and they said, make some questions. They said, kuch, so I gave them a set of questions. He said, kuch naya dijiye. I said नया तो एग्जाम में भी नहीं आता, एग्जाम में खुद पुराना आता है, इट्स, तो मैं नया क्यों दूं? He said, but you see, we need to distinguish ourselves from the others, so give something new. You see, so you're not interested in looking at some new thing that I've given. You need to understand that the material that you find in the coaching industry has been made by people like me. You know, it's just it's very funny. It's very funny that just imagine I go here and I make, and then you solve the test. So don't take too many tests. Your best bet is to understand the pattern by looking at the previous year questions. You can give yourself a test pool. You can give yourself a couple of materials towards the end that you can brush through. But I think going through uh, uh, live law is one of your best things for the Clat PG. Disha, have I been able to answer your question satisfactorily? Yeah, my pleasure. I think
Then, yes, we had a question from Rahul. Rahul, you can unmute yourself.
Rahul said how to manage semester and Clat. देखो भाई, अभी तो आपको सेमेस्टर को त्यागना पड़ेगा. I have a couple of my students right now. आपको त्यागना पड़ेगा in the last 15 days. You see, I said, let's think of it like this. You go to a forest and you have to cut all the trees. Rahul, if you want to cut all the trees in a forest, what do you do for the first? What's the first thing you do? You sharpen your axe. Now, the thing with sharpening your axe is that's like sharpening your mind. You can sharpen your mind even by studying what your law of let's say you're being taught um, maybe maritime law in your course. Okay, and maritime law is not being asked in CLAT. अब आप सोचोगे कि मैं मैरिटाइम लॉ पढ़ूं या क्लैट के लिए पढ़ूं, शायद आपका सवाल ये है. करेक्ट राहुल? इज दिस व्हाट योर क्वेश्चन इज? अगर मुझे मैरिटाइम लॉ पढ़ना है तो मैं ये करूं कि वो करूं? इन सच ए सिनेरियो, मैरिटाइम लॉ को जब पढ़ रहे हो ना, तो सोचो कि तुम अपने दिमाग की धार बढ़ा रहे हो, क्योंकि धार बढ़ाने के लिए आपको जरूरी नहीं कि एक ही तरह का पत्थर मिले. देयर आर सम थिंग्स वी कांट डू. सो इनिशियली अंटिल December 1st, धार जहां से भी बढ़ जाए वहां से बढ़ा लो. सो आई काइंड ऑफ पुट लाइक दिस. तो मुझे 15 डेज पुशअप्स करना है, लेकिन मान लो अब मैं मेट्रो में ट्रैवल कर रहा हूँ इन द मंथ ऑफ नवंबर. मैंने ऊपर रॉड है, उस रॉड को पकड़ो, 2 पुलअप्स मार लो. आप कहीं पे हाँ बैठे हो, हाँ 2 पुशअप्स कर लो. So you use whatever your situation is to sharpen your mind. But if you think that in the last fifth, and sort yourself out now. So let's say your examination is on December 20th. ठीक है? अब अगर, that's why I'm saying, last 15 days अगर आप क्लैट को नहीं दे रहे हो, तो आप इस चीज की उम्मीद मत करो कि आपसे क्लैट क्लियर होगा. तो इसलिए अगर आपको दूसरा काम है उसको अभी पहले निपटाओ, उसको इस तरह से करो कि आप एंड के 15 डेज में कर सको. That's kind of what I can say. Should we keep a tab on all Supreme Court cases or filtered ones? You know, Bhargavi, if you look at the questions, you'd find that are you talking for UG or acha, for PG? For PG, if you see Bhargavi, it becomes a little hard to say what will happen, right? So sometimes you have so much more corporate law than you'd imagine, because previously the CLAT used to be one, CLAT PG was one where you had predominantly the constitution and jurisprudence, because you think that it's an academic thing, you know. So somebody going for an LLM wants to get into academics, let's engage them. But it's not so much so now. If you follow the exercise of looking at the previous year questions, last 3 questions, and you look at live law for 10 days, you will not need to ask someone like me these questions. You know, I'd recommend for you to quickly get to a point where you're wise enough to see what you must do with yourself. What I'd urge you guys, if you're watching this right now, is that when we're watching a 60 days to CLAT video, please don't be in a position where you want to watch a 50 days to CLAT or a 30 days to CLAT, 10 days to CLAT video. Because, you know, there's a very limited advantage of what I'm saying right now. I'm just wasting your time. I kind of feel guilty about that I'm just like, it's like I'm telling you my experience with things, which is fine. But this is your journey. Quickly get to a point where you can find it out for yourself. I know I'm being very subjective, but I mean, that's the truth. I'm not selling you a coaching ना अभी. अगर मैं आपको कोचिंग सेल कर रहा होता तो मैं बोलता कि क्या पढ़ना है वो पढ़ो, जो मैंने बेचा है उसको खरीदो. That's why I'm being honest here. Anything else?
Yes, Mr. Ankit, we have received few questions. So one of them being that what will be the perfect time to the preparation of CLAT PG? Like, should it be like we should start it from the very beginning of our final year of undergraduate course?
मेरे ख्याल से आप अगले साल की बात कर रहे हो अभी. So I understand that someone is talking about the next year. I think it's not very relevant, but I'll just tell you right now. Don't use an axe. Don't use a mace to swat a fly. Okay. So I'd believe that a comfortable preparation for the CLAT PG is 1 year. If you are just go for, if you have the luxury of time, I'd say get to a point where you can go for a 3-month sprint for the CLAT, 1 year and 9 months of keeping a tab on the current affairs and everything, because तुम्हारे CLAT PG में current affairs आएगा, तुम्हारे इस साल का current affairs तब तक पुराना हो जाएगा, तो leave it for the last year.
Okay, and then the next question is that like, do you prefer taking coaching from the coaching centers, or do you prefer like self-studying for the CLAT and taking online references from videos and material available?
Look, in the last phase, you don't have the chance to go enroll somewhere, pay money, and check if it's bad or not. You don't have that kind of luxury. So I'd say go for videos online on YouTube. There's sufficient material. At this point, in the month of October, you can still experiment. Let's say if you can find a coaching institute that gives you a video set rather than a live classes set. This is not the time to attend live classes. This is the time to buy a video series. To मान लो, if there's a coaching institute that says 200 videos for X rupees, उसको खरीद लो, क्योंकि 200 videos को तुम forward कर सकते हो, पहला video देख सकते हो, फिर 8वां देख सकते हो, फिर 6ठा देख सकते हो. You can buy that and do this in the month of October and take down your notes. Like I said, from November, stop looking at videos because videos are very slow. Videos are very passive. It doesn't allow for division. In the month of October, go for a coaching that sells you videos, but avoid a coaching that that takes you through live. And the best thing that I'd suggest to you is do your diagnostic test, which is that पहले एक बार CLAT के 3 साल के पेपर तो देखो, जल्दी से करो, 2 दिन में करो, और उसके बाद तुम समझ जाओगे कि तुम्हें क्या करना है, तुम्हें किस चीज की जरूरत है. आप इस तरह के बचकाने सवाल किसी से और पूछोगे नहीं अगर आपने ये पहले काम कर दिया तो. ये तो वो वाली चीज है कि जब तक हम कुछ नहीं करते तब तक हम इस तरह के बच्चों वाले सवाल पूछते हैं. दिस इज नॉट अ क्वेश्चन दैट यू शुड हैव टू आस्क. व्हाट अबाउट द गुड नंबर ऑफ अटेम्प्ट वन शुड गो फॉर mocks? Take the test once, take any test once, ruminate over it, look at what you didn't know. Don't dodge what you don't know. You're taking a test for the sake of identifying what you don't know. Don't take too many tests. Take around 10 to 15 tests depending on what you like. And take a test not for the sake of saying मैंने 50 टेस्ट लिए फिर भी नहीं हुआ, but for the sake of learning from the test, and then you'll find your number yourself. There's no prescription that I can give you as far as the number is concerned.
Participants, do you have any further questions? I feel there are no more questions.
Right. So that's all I had.
Yeah, so the lastly, I would like to move to the vote of thanks. I, Riddhi Chandal, on behalf of Team Law Internships, would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Ankit for taking out time from the busy schedule and interacting with the young minds today. Thank you so much, Mr. Ankit.
Thank you so much, Riddhi. Thank you so much, everyone here. I hope I didn't waste your time.
It was insightful. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.